folks, we live in a beautiful city. Beautiful Pacific Ocean right here. That anytime we want to take the N-Judah or the O or our car, come down here and remind ourselves of really just how big and beautiful our planet is. To some extent very durable, and in some extent really fragile. I've spent really most of my life trying to think about ways that we as human beings on this planet can get along with each other a lot better. And I came to that desire by reading Rachel Carson's book, The Silent Spring, back when I was 10 years old, by living in a place in a city, a big, vibrant industrial city, same city my opponent comes from, Baltimore, but also living in a place, a hilly place in the city where the trees were 300 years old, and feeling very in contact with those old trees that were even right behind my house. So I always wanted to also try to figure out why the economy wasn't working for people. When people close to my family lost their jobs in the early 60s, I became determined to understand how the economy worked. So that's why I went to the university I went to. I majored in economics and biology. And I went to Washington University because the leading environmentalist at the time, his name was Barry Commoner, he was a leading proponent of the theory of global cooling at the time, was at Washington University. And so I enrolled at Washington University, graduated cum laude in economics and biology, and really trying to understand how we could come to peace and continue with our planet and yet prosper individually and collectively. And that thinking and that desire of thinking and studying, I didn't find the answer in college, but I think got closer to the answer as the years go by, and began to see that liberty coupled with responsibility and accountability is perhaps the best way that we can treat ourselves and our planet. And the recent spill in the Gulf is a very troubling event that may in many ways reveal the problems of our current system, that in some ways it grants enough liberty, but not nearly enough accountability and responsibility on the parts of all the actors in the energy extraction industry and in many other industries, and in really many of our walks of life. So, what happened? Well, you all know what happened. This rig was drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. It was being operated by British Petroleum. Complete responsibility for what was happening there. They also were supposedly accountable to the Minerals and Management Services. And you might want to check some YouTubes out. The testimony of the BP company man in charge of the rig from his office in Houston, and the testimony of Christopher Pleasant, the man responsible for the exploration ship that was being leased by BP, are excellent in revealing some of the human side and some of the mistakes that were being made, and some of the professionalism too. But one of the most revealing things about the testimony is that if you listen, you'll see that every step of the way they were talking to mines management people and looking at the regulations, and one of the possibly, and it seems that probably, the essence of the failure was that the regulations required 3 concrete plugs to be put in the hole before the hole could be considered finished, and the rig could move away and be the blowout preventer removed and the thing considered capped. And all this was the last cement hole was being poured when all this happened. 2 had already been poured. And these are required by regulation. So the regulation obviously had some problems because they encased in concrete, if you could say, this particular procedure of sealing the well, which was clearly inadequate. The other problem is that by having this regulation, BP could say, well, we met those regulations. It also engendered in them some overconfidence because 2 of the plugs were already in, and so they took some chances whether they were within regulations or not, I don't know, with the 3rd plug, which are in sequence. Another big problem with BP's accountability is that they had lobbied, and other industry people had lobbied and gotten a $75 million liability cap. So because of that, there weren't enough safety considerations built in to the economic model of British Petroleum, BP. But a much larger problem in the whole scheme of things is that BP is a corporation. And this is a problem that I believe that most progressive San Franciscans understand, and understand that their representative acts as a defender for the present corporate structure. So what is a corporation? A corporation, the original corporations were, as to my understanding, were started by the Queen and kings of England to protect their favored interests and encourage and allow their favored interests to pursue their own profits in exchange for sharing those profits with the Queen or King, and having the Queen or King and the force of the Queen or King protect them from the responsibility and accountability for the damages they might do in pursuit of those profits. So pursuing gain in business by doing a public good and selling a product to people and doing it safely without damaging anybody, some, like myself, might consider a good thing. Like a baker who figures out how to take a little bit of wheat, a little bit of yeast, and a little bit of bricks and a little bit of firewood and make a whole bunch of loaves of bread, and manages to do that more effectively and better tasting than all the other bakers, might make a profit from making better and more bread than anybody else with less resources. So that's a definition of a good profit. But a bad profit is when he also puts a whole bunch of smoke in the air and chokes everybody in the neighborhood and gets protected by regulations from liability to his neighbors for choking their air and polluting their property with ash. So it's very important that you have responsibility and accountability.